Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys what I wish I knew before my study abroad trip to Ecuador. So let's get into this video. Oddly enough, the first thing I wish I knew was about the weather. Going into Ecuador, I was told that it was spring basically all the time and that a sweater or a cardigan will be needed basically at all times. But I quickly found out that this was not true. I had to walk to my internship every single day. Around the time of 12 to 3 is peak sun hours, and it was just like really hot, and because you're so close to the sun rays are like piercing. So for me personally, I wish I brought more short sleeves to wear when it was really hot, and of course sunscreen. Everyone tells you, use sunscreen when you go to Ecuador, but that is definitely true. Bring your sunscreen and bring some short sleeves because you're gonna need it. Obviously, because it's Ecuador, you're going to need to know some Spanish. But how much Spanish? That depends on what exactly you're doing in Ecuador, but I found I had to be close to fluent when I went to Ecuador because the places I went to, a lot of people don't know English outside of the airport. So I would dust off your Spanish book and really start to learn some Spanish. I was a Spanish minor coming into it, and I struggled because Spanish was in the back of my brain, and using Spanish every single day is different than just speaking it in classrooms, obviously. So I wish I had more one-on-one time to talk to a fluent speaker, because that would have really helped me during my time in Ecuador, because I would have felt more comfortable and I would have been able to have more opportunities even to in my internship if I knew more Spanish. Although I would mention that during my stay, my Spanish got 1,000 times better because I was constantly using it. And if you guys don't know, my trip had a Spanish only rule, so that was an adventure on itself, because every day, like every night, my brain would be like throbbing because of all the Spanish I had spoke and all the Spanish I had learned. So that is another tip for you guys. Learn your Spanish, use your Spanish until you go to Ecuador, so you are ready, you are prepared. Also, you'll be in conversations for a longer time. For me, I stayed in a host home, and it was interesting. Obviously, it's a whole different culture, and you don't really understand that until you're in Ecuador, until you're there living life every day. You start to notice the differences, and one of the differences is that people love to stay in conversations. They genuinely want to know about you. So think of some questions to ask them and be patient and get to learn and understand their culture. If you guys are watching this video, obviously you're doing a study abroad trip, and this is like a once-in-a-lifetime experience for a lot of people. So even though it's not something that we're used to as Westerners, getting to learn a different culture and getting to know the people is so precious. And I made so many connections that I would have never made if I exited those conversations when I wanted to, instead of just listening and learning and being present. I had one experience in a cafe where the person would make the coffee in front of you, and he was Venezuelan, and we got to learn so much about him and his culture while he was making our coffee. And if we chose not to indulge and talk to him, we would have never learned any of those things. Don't be surprised by this, but in Ecuador, you will get a lot of natives being more honest than you're used to. A lot of people commented on my appearance, commented on my abilities, and because I worked in a hospital internship, so people would comment on my abilities, if it was bad, if it was good, and that's just their culture. Ecuadorians in general are super nice, so when they comment about your appearance or comment about your abilities, it's most likely not in a negative way. It's just their culture. So don't be surprised if somebody comments on your appearance, unless like if it's clearly inappropriate, then it's inappropriate, but usually it's just part of the Ecuadorian way. If you have an iPhone, a lot of Ecuadorians will comment on you not taking it out in public. When I had my iPhone out in public, they're like, put it back. And you might already know this if you had a safety seminar or whatever you had before coming into this trip, but it's really true. Don't have your iPhone out. For me, it wasn't really that big of a deal when I was by myself, because a lot of Ecuadorians told me that they thought I was an Ecuadorian, so it might have not been a super big deal for me, because they like to target people that clearly look like foreigners. They will try and take it, especially like it's common for motorcyclists to come and, you know, just take things from people, take their purses, take whatever. Where I was at, it was not super common. It wasn't a per se dangerous area, but just be aware of that. And there's also different types of schemes that people have. So when I was there, one of their schemes would be like, oh, they'll come up to you if you look like a gringo, and they would be like, oh, one of the gringos stole one of my blank, and do you know who this gringo is? And people that will stop and talk to the person will get stuff stolen. Yeah, there's also other schemes too, and your program will probably let you guys in on some, but that's one of them that I know other people encounter, not me personally, because the Ecuadorian said I don't look like a gringo. So except for when I start to speak and they're like, yeah, you're different. I actually got different comments. I got Brazilian, I got Ecuadorian, like from different countries, just not America for some reason. When I was working in the hospital, I was attending to a patient, and the doctor didn't know that I was not Ecuadorian, and I was like, yeah, I'm from Estados Unidos, and he was like, oh, I thought you were Ecuadorian. He was like, sorry, I'm speaking to you in Spanish and not English. I was like, no, está bien, yo entiendo. I was telling him that I understood and he doesn't have to worry. So little funny things like that happened to me during this journey, and I was not expecting that either. So if you're African American and you're going to Ecuador, people will probably just assume that you're Ecuadorian, because they are Afro-Ecuadorians. So yeah, that's another fun tip to have. Another tip that I wish I knew is how tech savvy Ecuador is. Their malls are so beautiful. Like, I've never seen a more pretty mall in my life. I went to Condado, I went to El Jardín, I went to ¿Qué más? There's more malls, but they're leaving my head right now. But their malls are so pretty, guys, and you have to go to one. So yeah, Ecuador is super tech savvy. Like, they have DoorDash, and it's called Perdido Ya, but it's kind of like a DoorDash service that they have there. They have Ubers, they have Uber Eats, all that stuff. A little secret here, Uber is actually illegal in Ecuador, but people do it every single day because their main sources of income, one of them includes taxiing. And so the government placed a law against like Uber workers, so they wouldn't do Uber, but people still do Uber, a lot of them. So yeah, that's another fun tip to have. I do want to clarify, the law is just against Uber and not Uber Eats. There are a lot of Uber Eats motorcyclists in Ecuador. Another one I have for you guys is cafes. For that one person that doesn't know, I just have to emphasize how good Ecuador coffee is. And one thing you have to do is cafe hopping. I fully recommend. Go to the panderia, go to the cafes, cafeterias, and get yourself a nice cup of coffee and some pan, okay, some bread. So that is one tip I have for you guys, like, to enjoy your time. Like, I ate through Ecuador. And I don't regret it a single bit, because I don't know what it is about Ecuadorian food, but like, I feel like it doesn't make you put on weight. Like, I didn't put on any weight there, and I ate my heart's content, because I was like, I don't know when I'm gonna return back to Ecuador, so I'm gonna go all out, and that I did. That I did. Everything is super cheap. I will say, if I was there for 2 months and I spent around $500, but honestly, if you're going to get souvenirs and stuff like that, you might want to bring more depending on what your budget is. So, but honestly, go all out on Ecuadorian food because it is so good. Another tip for you guys, if you guys are living in a host home, wait for your host mom to take you guys souvenir shopping. Oftentimes, they'll overcharge you for things in the mercados. When I went to the Mercado Artisanal by myself, I pretty sure I got scammed, but like not that bad because like I knew what it was about, so I was like bargaining. But if you go with the Ecuadorian to the mercados, you have a better chance of getting a better deal, just because they'll know like you know how much things are supposed to cost and they won't overcharge you. Another tip for you guys, if you guys are going to take a taxi, make sure they have a meter in the taxi, because I got scammed in a taxi and we went for like probably like a 10-minute ride to Key Centro. It's a mall. Oh, that's another mall, by the way, Key Centro. But it was like a 10, maybe 15 minutes ride, but that's a stretch. And the dude didn't have a meter, and we didn't know at the time because we were just like fresh into Ecuador. We didn't know at the time like you're supposed to check for the meter. So when we got down, because I had went with a group of people, and obviously the people I went with were gringos, so obviously they were like, yeah, you're with them. So we got overcharged really bad. We paid $10 when it should have been like $5, but that's a stretch. $5 is a stretch. Should have been like $3. So make sure you look for the meter in the taxis. If you're going anywhere, just be like, ¿Dónde está el mitador? Just make sure they have a meter. If y'all are bringing a lot of souvenirs, do not overpack. Like, I'm an overpacker. Honestly, I really wish I did not overpack on this trip because there were so many cool souvenirs I wanted to get, but I didn't have enough space in my bag to get. So if you're gonna be there for 3 months, just try your best not to overpack. The airline I went on, they weren't super lenient with the 50-pound limit, so I recommend not overpacking to bring back souvenirs for your fam and your friends. Another tip I have for you guys is to act like you belong in Ecuador. This may sound like a little like, what? But act like you belong there. Try and immerse yourself as much as you possibly can to get as much out of the experience that you can. Especially because people are more likely to get scammed when they look, you know, like they don't know what they're doing. So if I were you, I would take some time out to really learn about the customs and culture of Ecuador. Like, greeting people is very, very important. In my first few days at my internship, I felt like the doctors and the people there were not really that warm towards me, and it's because I wasn't following their customs and their culture, and I didn't know. So when I realized, like, sorry for the switch on the quality, but my camera totally died. But when I was starting my internship, I had to learn how to greet people and introduce myself, because oftentimes, like, especially if you're in a busier internship, they might not have enough time to introduce you. So make sure you introduce yourself. So these are all the things I wish I knew on my trip to Ecuador, and I hope this was really helpful for you guys. I hope you guys enjoy your study abroad experience and take as much out of it as you possibly can. All right, guys, I will see you guys in my next video, and don't forget to check out the Ecuador vlog up here. Bye.